Real Grade Gunpla has been getting more and more popular every year since its inception back in 2010. Starting with the Gundam and Zaku, these model kits were a way for Bandai to flex their model kit technology. The idea is simple in concept. Take the design philosophy of Master Grade, shrink it down to 1/144 scale, and give the Gundam realistic styling with more frame detailing, surface detailing, and a sheet of its very own decal stickers. Today we're going to embark on the monumental task of looking at all 41 of these model kits and ranking them as objectively as possible. The criteria for this ranking is based on the following. Is the kit a good representation of the mobile suit? Since these are models, this is paramount to get correct. How is the build out of the box? How stable is the kit? Can it stand on its own, or does it need an action base? What are its features and gimmicks? Finally, the price will come into play with some of these kits. Most of these come in at around $35 US, give or take, but if a kit isn't priced right, it might affect the ranking. Please be kind to the models that you see on screen. These have been built over the course of 8 years, so some are really amateur builds from when I first started in this hobby. Starting from worst to best, we're going to go over the tiers that we have on our list. The worst tier we have here is F tier. That means that the kit is a total failure, it needs hard modifications, and isn't super enjoyable out of the box. Our second to worst tier is E tier. That means that the kit has a lot of problems, it's not a fun build, it's finicky, prone to falling apart, you're definitely going to need some glue with it, or perhaps it's just not released as it should have been. The beginning of the bad is D tier. That means that the kit has fundamental problems, it needs a lot of TLC, or absolutely requires a stand to be displayed. This is where a lot of stand queens are going to end up. Our middle of the road tier is C tier. That means that the kit has some flaws, it's a fun build, but it may need a little bit of TLC out of the box. The next tier is B tier, and that means that the kit is going to be a great build. It may still have some flaws, but it's still a fun build at the end of the day. The next tier is going to be A tier. That means that the kit is near perfect, and any issue would basically be a nitpick, but at the end of the day, it's still a bit of an issue. The next tier is S tier. That means it's perfect. There's no issues, it's packed with features, it's a fantastic build, you could build it out of the box, you could customize with it, it really is the cream of the crop. Our final and best tier of the tier list is the SS tier, reserved only for the best of the best. These kits need to do everything S tier kits do, but improve the Real Grade formula and elevate it to a new level. Real Grades 1 through 27 all use the advanced MS joint for their main skeletal structure of their inner frame. This has led to some builders discussing an early Real Grade syndrome, which will be covered in another video. This advanced MS joint was scaled back considerably from Real Grade 28 and onward, until 41 anyways. The advanced MS joint, or AMSJ as it will be known, will be a consideration for some of these rankings. Most kits use this feature to some degree. At the end of the day, these are model kits, and most of these issues can be dealt with through some modeling know-how. I rank these kits based off my experience with them and off the criteria mentioned before. This video is all my opinion. I think ranking videos are fun and another way for a creator to share their tastes. I apologize in advance if a kit you like ends up on a tier you don't agree with. Just remember, we all have different tastes and experiences, and that's what makes this hobby so fun. I really don't even think any of the kits on this list are bad, except for one of them, but you'll have to watch the video to find out which one that is. I'd love to hear your tier list, so be sure to comment below, and please try to keep things civil. This is all just for fun. Without wasting any more of your time, let's get into the tier list, starting with the first Real Grade release. Starting this list, we have the RX-78 Gundam, a classic, iconic design. While this kit isn't fully accurate to the anime, it is accurate to the 1/1 scale statue that was standing in Japan during the time. Out of the box, I would say that this build is fair. We should give extra grace here as it's the first in the series of a brand new line of model kits. That's also showing off new building tech with the advanced MS joint frame. Any issue that this kit has can easily be fixed with a few dabs of glue and won't face many issues beyond the few random armor panels that like to pop off during articulation, which is more of a nuisance and less of an actual problem. After 8 years built, my Real Grade Gundam 1.0 is still standing strong, able to pull off many poses, and still looks great while doing so. The kit features the standard loadout of Gundam weapons with the bazooka and the beam rifle, but also has a core fighter that can be displayed separately from the main mobile suit itself. I think the term hand grenade gets flown around too loosely with this kit. It's really not that bad, because it does have the occasional annoyance with posing, and the weakest of MS joint frames, this is going to go into C tier. middle of the road. The second real grade to come out mere months after the Gundam 1.0, we have the venerable Char's Zaku. This model is a great representation of what a realistic Zaku would look like. The added surface detail, thrusters, and decals all bring this design to life. I love the look of the real grade Zaku a lot. Out of the box, this build does fairly well. There are some builders that will have issues with the spring step with the power cables. Always ask for help in a builder's group if you get stuck. I always stretch the spring just a little bit to get it over the peg and haven't had any issues since I started doing this technique. Beyond that, this kit assembles easily enough, and once built, I really only ever lose the side skirts, which can easily be fixed with some glue. The Zaku is able to stand by itself, it's able to kneel, it's able to kick and balance on one foot. I think the real grade Zaku is an underrated gem and does a great job articulating despite having such a large, solid skirt. This kit includes the Zaku machine gun, bazooka, and heat hawk, as well as a gear that can move the mono eye when you turn the head. Some really cool stuff here on this Zaku. For all these great features and good posability and stability, this kit is going into B tier. Real grade number 3 was a fan favorite from Gundam Seed, the Aile Strike Gundam. This is a fantastic iteration of the Strike Gundam, and the proportions and aesthetics of the real grade look great, better than any other 1/144 scale Strike Gundam. This design greatly benefits from the added surface detail. Sadly, that's where the praises for this Aile Strike end in real grade form. The Aile Strike uses the advanced MS Joint 3 for its inner frame, and this is by far the worst advanced MS Joint frame that Bandai has created. The upper hip is on a ball joint, and this leads to the heavy backpack pushing down, forcing this kit to split out. Because of this hip issue, this kit is really limited with its ground poses, and extra care must be given to ensure it doesn't topple over. The kit does excel on a stand, and that's a theme you're going to see with a lot of Seed kits during this tier list. If you remove the Aile Striker pack, it does stand better, but that's part of the draw for this kit, so just stick it on a stand and call it a day. Because this kit is so top heavy and has such a hard time standing when fully loaded, this is going into D tier. This is where a lot of the stand queens are going to end up. For real grade number 4, we have the Zaku mass production type. This kit is exactly the same as real grade number 2, Char's Zaku, but this time it's in the green mass production colors, which looks fantastic with all these different greens contrasting off one another. I believe this kit did add some new hands to the kit for better weapon holding. It also comes with a flat dome for the head, so you can build it in its grunt configuration or the commander configuration. Because this really doesn't do anything different over Char's, and for basically being the only grunt type of mobile suit we've gotten as a real grade, this is going to go into B tier next to its red counterpart. Real grade number 5 is another iconic Seed design and fan favorite. We have another Kira Yamato suit, the Freedom Gundam. Arguably the most popular Gundam from Seed, the Freedom Gundam does look good here, but the head is just a little bit wonky. The GCP version does look a lot better when it comes to aesthetics, but that's what happens when you have 10 plus years to retool a design. The Freedom Gundam is a bit of a frustrating build. It does include one of the better advanced MS joint frames coming with AMSJ4, but what really causes the problem here is the wings. Anytime you go to display the wings in a different way, you're bound to have them loosen up and potentially fall apart. I'd be wary to glue these parts in case the piece gets too loose, then there would be no way to get in there and tighten it up afterwards. Beyond the wings, the kit does have a hard time standing, but at least you can stiffen this frame up with some joint guard and make it more reliable over the strikes frame. If you can get the wings to cooperate with you, then you'll have a lot of gimmicks to work with here, as the wings have the rail cannons within them, as well as the rail cannons on the side skirt. There really are a lot of gimmicks to unpack here on the Freedom Gundam. It's at least rich with features despite its flaws. Because the Freedom feels more at home on a stand, it's going into D tier. It really needs a lot of work to be made reliable. Real grade number 6 is probably the most boring real grade release we've gotten. It's the Skygrasper in 1/144 scale. This is more or less a weapon set for the real grade Strike Gundam. The Skygrasper does come out looking nice, as does the weapons for the sword and launcher packs. The assembly for this kit is extremely easy. Panel lining will take you the longest amount of time, but if you skip that, then the main assembly is probably under an hour. You simply don't get a lot of bang for your buck here with the Skygrasper. It seems Bandai wanted to release the Striker packs, but make it more worth their while and slapped a Skygrasper build into the box to make it worth a retail release. What this sadly does is make the set cost $31 US, which is insane. This is the same price as the actual Aile Strike kit. What makes this even worse is the P Bandai Perfect Strike Gundam is $42 US, a mere $11 more than the original Strike Gundam. I wish just the weapons were sold and the Skygrasper was left out of this to make it a more affordable set, but as it is now, it's far too expensive for what's included in the box, especially considering how rudimentary the main build is of the Skygrasper. This is going to go into E tier. It's boring and expensive, and with the Perfect Strike existing, this is really only worth collecting for the completionists out there. The Titans have arrived in real grade form with the Mark II Gundam. A fan favorite and classic design from Zeta Gundam, this dark indigo color contrasts well with the main body dark charcoal color. Real Grade knocked a design out of the park and did a great job balancing between anime accuracy with these new realistic design features. This is my favorite design iteration of the Mark II Gundam. This kit uses AMSJ5, which is a great inner frame for these more minimal looking Gundams, and has lent to this kit having the reputation of the best early Real Grade Gunpla. Everything assembles nice and easily for this kit, with the biggest hurdle being the power hoses on the leg and the backpack, but this is easy to overlook when we have such a stable and well articulate version of the Gundam Mark II. The Titans version even includes some additional thrusters, so you can build this in the prototype or completed configuration of this design. A fantastic build with some great details and features. I wouldn't sleep on the Mark II. This gets an easy A tier or even a low S tier. I had a hard time thinking about where to place this, and it really could fall in either camp. The power cables do give out of the box builders some issues, and that's what made me lean more towards A rather than S tier. Real Grade number 8 is the Gundam Mark II AEUG version. This kit is exactly the same as Real Grade number 7, but with the AEUG colors of white, red, and very dark blue. This is going to go right next to the Titans Mark II in A tier, as it really is the exact same kit. I genuinely enjoyed both of these builds, and I know you will too if you appreciate this classic Gundam design. Now, if only they'd reprint the Amuro colors on P Bandai, that would be great. Possibly a controversial take, here we have another underrated gem. It's the Real Grade Justice Gundam. The Justice here looks great in Real Grade and has a better aesthetic than its sister suit, the Freedom. The contrasting pink, red, and black all looks great and plays well together here. Assembly for this kit is fairly standard, and nothing really was difficult about it out of the box. The Justice being a seed design suffers from typical seed tropes of a very heavy backpack, but Bandai planned for this by packing in a type of peg stand to help the Justice keep its Phantom 00 in flight mode. What this does is it helps keep the stress off the inner frame with the heavy backpack, but this kit also has a stowed mode for these wings to help the kit stand when the Phantom isn't deployed. In articulating this kit, I was even able to get it to stand on one foot and hold this pose. This is a kit that does excel better on a stand, but I'm more impressed with the Justice than I am the Freedom or the Strike. The Justice is able to ride the Phantom 00 and comes with its full spread of weapons. Really, the biggest problem I have with this kit is the knee armor likes to pop off from time to time, but this just slips back on pretty easily. This kit isn't without its quirks, but it definitely gets way more hate than it deserves. This is an easy B tier pick, no question. It's not as bad as the other seed Real Grades. At this point, this might be the second most controversial Real Grade to release. Here is the Zeta Gundam. To give you guys a spoiler, this isn't going directly into F, but before you pull out your pitchforks, hear me out. The Zeta Gundam is a difficult build, yes. This is a huge skill check and not easy for out of the box and new builders. But let me tell you, this was my first Gunpla kit in 2013, so I suppose you could say I've been molded by the jank here. The Zeta looks decent here. I used to actually really like this look a lot until the MG4 came out, and I read that the chest is supposed to be flat, which this is obviously not. The rifle is also a little bit too big for my liking and has scuffed the side of my kit because the rifle seems a little larger than it's really supposed to be, at least in the stock area. So aesthetically, while the added details are nice, it's not super accurate. I will say that I appreciate the Real Grade Zeta for what it is. There is a ton of engineering behind this kit because it's fully transformable, as is with no parts needed. For this, I greatly commend Bandai for being able to pull this off. This kit is going to fit comfortably into E tier. It has a lot of engineering behind it, and it has a strong, angry, although albeit inaccurate proportions. I still think this is a decent kit if you take your time with it and tighten the joints where they need it. It just takes some modeling know-how to work around the Zeta and its shortcomings. It doesn't need any hard modifications or work with plot plate to make this a solid build like another kit we're going to be looking at later on. From Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Destiny, we have the titular mobile suit itself. the Destiny Gundam. Arguably one of the ugliest builds I'm going to show off today, we have another kit that tends to get looked over. Once again, the added surface detail looks phenomenal on the Destiny and really makes the design look a lot better to me. My one issue with the aesthetics of this kit is its massive feet. It looks a little funky and off to me, but if this helps with kit stability, especially given the heavy payload of the Destiny, I suppose it's a fair trade. This kit uses AMSJ4, the same one from the Freedom. Really, the biggest problem here with this kit is its heavy payload of weapons. Primarily, the anti-ship sword is quite heavy for the weak bicep connection in the shoulder. This ball joint does not have an easy time handling the weight of this sword. Even with the weakness, I'm able to get the Destiny to pull off some menacing poses. Shin really read Berserk once and said, "This is literally me." I like the Real Grade Destiny. The AMSJ4 is easy to tighten up if you needed to, but I'm not going to let personal bias cloud my judgment. The Destiny does have a balancing issue due to its payload, and the weak bicep does limit your ability to pose this kit exactly how you want. These issues will have us putting the Destiny into C tier, but if you stiffen these joints, I could see it landing into B, but that doesn't count as that's not part of the out-of-the-box criteria. The GP01 is one of my favorite Gundams. Coming from Top Gun, but with Gundams, the Stardust Memory series is perfectly suited to have its designs brought into the Real Grade lineup. The GP01 does a great job keeping a transformable Gundam stable. The Gundam does come with a core fighter gimmick, so the kit is able to separate and expose the core fighter. This doesn't affect this kit as the upper torso section has a cap for the backpack that helps keep the kit in place and everything nice and stable. The build for this is easy and intuitive despite this transformation gimmick, and even has the same MS joint that the Gundam Mark II has, which handles this low-key design very well. The GP01 earns a spot next to the two Gundam Mark IIs in A tier. Sadly, what's said about the above cannot be said for GP01 Full Burn-In. This kit is very similar to its original counterpart, but this kit suffers from the transformation gimmick as opposed to the regular GP01. This build is extremely similar to the GP01, but this kit doesn't have the cap that goes over the rear backpack. Therefore, the core fighter doesn't really get locked into place with the upper torso section. If you don't stiffen up the upper torso locking lugs that go into the transformed core fighter, this upper torso section will fall off quite easily. The AMSJ5 still does a fine job articulating the mobile suit and handling the weight of the added backpack thrusters, so there's not a lot of issues here with the frame, really just the transformation itself. This is a kit that I would have preferred the transformation gimmick was just left out for the sake of a more solid build. There's really not much utility with posing this kit separated anyways, so while it's a neat gimmick, it does just feel a little pointless at the end of the day. Another slight issue we have is that the thruster pods are on a very tight and small peg that's easily snappable, so it's definitely a part to look out for. I do like this kit, but it does need some tightening to be made solid, and because of that it goes into C tier. It's not bad, it's just kinda mid. I don't know if I just got lucky with the Real Grade Gunpla lottery, but my Strike Freedom doesn't really have many problems standing on its own. I know that's a big complaint with this kit, but this 6-year-old build hasn't given me much issues with that. This kit builds the same as most other seed kits, and that's primarily because it uses the AMSJ4 that we saw debut with the original Freedom Gundam. This is a great looking Strike Freedom when we look at the outward armor and surface detail, but what's kind of disappointing is its gold frame as it uses Bandai's injection gold, which has the same coloring as Kraft mac and cheese. Though there is one plated runner for the Dragoons, which look nice when you can actually see it, so I guess it's plated where it's really relevant and noticeable. The Strike Freedom does come with its typical payload that you would expect of the 8 Dragoons and 2 beam rifles with the 2 side skirt rail cannons. While this kit seems to pose fine, it does have weak joints that need to be tightened up. The upper shoulders are relatively weak, and the torso midsection is a little loose. I was still able to manage with mine, but I can see builders having issues with it, and maybe that's where the inability to stand reputation comes from. I'm honestly impressed with the amount of ground poses I was able to pull off for this video, so I think C tier is a fair place for this kit. It's better and more stable than its Freedom counterpart, but still suffers from a few weaknesses here and there, and because of that it's going into C tier. I have another really ugly old build here for this Real Grade Exia, one of my favorite mobile suits of all time. This kit uses a new AMSJ7 for its inner framing. The Exia benefits from having a very minimal design. As such, the articulation is high, as is the stability of this kit. Really, the only thing that can offset your balance is the larger GN blade, but the kit handles the sword like a champ. The Exia also comes with a myriad of swords for accessories which are plated in a nice silver color. Out of the box, this is a fantastic real grade with a great look and some wonderful aesthetics. There are, however, some very small parts like the cheek vents and the holographic power hoses which can be a little obnoxious to deal with, and that's a small price to pay for the best 1/144 scale Exia we've seen. This is a very well-deserved A tier. For Real Grade 16, we have Char's Zagok, aka the Red Crab. The Zagok is a decent kit and a really easy build. Any 1-year war based mobile suit looks great in Real Grade form with the added surface detail stylings and decals. My biggest issue with the Zagok is just that it's a little boring. What you see is what you get, and there's really no accessories included with this. You can move the mono eye, and the details do look great, but that's really it. The Real Grade has quite a bit of articulation with the AMS-J8, but this comes at a cost that it's a little loosey-goosey. It's solid when it's standing, but if you pick it up to move it around, it feels super sloppy. The high grade feels sloppy too, but I'm able to balance that kit upside down on one claw. I am unable to do that with this Real Grade here. I do think it's a decent kit and it's fun to build, just at the end of the day, when we look at all these mainline mobile suits that we've gotten in Real Grade, this just feels like a random pick. The Real Grade Zagok goes into B tier. It's not bad, there's just nothing special about it at all. Our first after Colony kit, we have the Wing Zero Endless Waltz. This kit utilizes AMS-J9, which has some much needed improvement for the upper bicep and shoulder connection joint. Now being more stiff, this frame is able to handle and carry the heavy payload of Wing Zero's twin buster rifle. Wing Zero looks great here with the Real Grade stylings, adding a lot of surface detail to the front wings, and it looks great. This is a great representation of Wing Zero in 1/144 scale and a much needed improvement over the old fighting action high grade from the 90s. With that kit being hard to find, this is your best bet for a Wing Zero in 1/144 scale. The Wing Zero suffers from weak toes that for whatever reason have an upwards toe bend, which can be a little annoying to deal with when it comes to posing. What helps with the posing is the great articulation of the wings. You have heavy wings in the front and the rear. Working with these wings in tandem, you can get a very good balance out of this kit. Even the waist does a solid job holding up the weight of these wings. Really, the worst thing about this kit is the toe bend, which is easy enough to work around. It will keep it out of A tier, but I still think this will fit comfortably into B tier. The second AD timeline mobile suit is the 00 Riser, a powerhouse of a mobile suit in a very busy design. Like the Exia, the 00 Riser benefited from the RG treatment. Using AMS-J7, the same from the Exia, the Riser is decently solid despite its heavy and bulky design. The O Riser on the back makes this kit very back heavy, but luckily the AMS-J7 is strong and able to handle it no problem. The assembly of the 00 Riser is a blast. Unlike the high grade series, it gives us the full payload. You even get the GN condensers if you wanted to build it in that configuration too. This is a feature-rich model kit that will be a great time to assemble. You can pull off some decent ground poses, and this kit does great on a stand as well. This is a solid B tier entry with lots to love about it. The only drawbacks to it are the side connections for the riser wings are a little weak with how they attach to the GN drives. The O Riser is also decently covered in some fairly obvious seam lines. This is a very old build for me, and I'm always impressed anytime I take it off the shelf to repose it. For this next entry, I have to really put personal bias aside, as the Astray red frame is not a design I enjoy in the least bit. This is our second kit of 2015, coming in after the 00 Riser and introducing us to the AMS-J10, specifically designed for the Astray kits. The Astray is a very quick and easy build, with its primary weaponry being the Gabera straight and a beam rifle. It's low-key and compact, a perfect design to utilize the AMS-J. This kit is able to accomplish some very nice poses and looks great while doing so. While I'm not a big fan of this design for the most part, this kit does look great in their RG style. Sadly, one important feature is a little weird looking, and that's the face. Something with how the mouth vents look just doesn't look right here on the Astray, especially when compared to the other grades in the line art. The Astray also relies on some really ugly foil stickers which look awful, and these go on the main body of the mobile suit. Usually you can ignore these, but if you put them on the Astray, it is pretty ugly. These small issues don't hold this back from being a great kit and a nice laid-back build. The Astray finds its place comfortably into A tier. Here we have another iteration of the Wing Gundam, this time taking inspiration from Kotoki's redesigns for the manga adaptation of Wing simply called Endless Waltz. Yes, the Wing lineage tends to get very confusing. This kit is more or less the same as Real Grade number 17. The legs, torso, head, majority of the arms, and shoulders are the same, just with different colors. What's different is this version comes with a shield, different wings, and a different buster rifle. While the aesthetics and redesign of Gundam Wing does look really nice here, and this kit does feature a transformation, it carries the same toe problem that RG17 had. But this time, the Gundam doesn't have any extra wings for the front to help balance it out. The second issue this kit has is that the hand does not like holding the buster rifle. The only reason why my version of this kit is able to hold this buster rifle is because it's been glued into the hand. It's a cool kit and I love the look of it, but it's definitely a little more flawed than Wing Zero Endless Waltz version we saw in B tier. Because of that, this comes down a slot comfortably into C tier. For RG21, we have a special treat, a sort of hybrid real grade if you will. This is the 00 Quan, a lopsided mobile suit with a heavy shield on one side. What's special about the Quan is this is the first real grade that blends AMSJ in typical master grade type of building techniques. The arms are built just like you would any master grade or newer real grade, all pieces and no pre-molded moving parts. This makes the arm really strong and even capable of holding the combined beam saber. The real grade styling is here in a tasteful amount, and this kit comes with a wide variety of accessories, with all the GN bits able to combine to the larger sword or a cannon. What's better is the Quan doesn't have to do it all by itself. A small stand is even included for those tricky poses with these larger weapons. I'm very proud to put this into S tier, our very first S tier of the list, and well deserved. The Quan is an amazing real grade. We go from our first S tier to our first F tier. Here we have the Real Grade Sinanju. There's much debate online whether the Real Grade Zeta is the worst or if it's the Sinanju, and my money is entirely on the Sinanju being the worst. The Sinanju, this 22-meter mech, reuses the AMSJ-5, the same inner frame as the Gundam Mark II, which comes in at 19 meters. The Sinanju is far too tall in the legs and back heavy to be reusing this frame. This kit requires hard modifications to be made stable, and that's what made me put this lower on the list than the Real Grade Zeta. If you wanted a solid Zeta, you can glue it in mobile suit mode and have a solid kit. The Sinanju needs some plating in addition to glue. You wouldn't even think these thrusters on the back are this heavy, but they are simply too much for the waist joint of the Sinanju to handle. Some plug plate needs to be braced into the back of the waist to keep the torso centered, or else this kit is always going to be looking skyward, wondering what it's like to have a good kit made of its design. Beyond that, the arm cuffs should be glued or they'll pop out anytime you move the arms and hands. The arms are weak, and it's generally just a depressing kit to hold in your hands. It's a floppy, flawed mess that's also expensive. The best part of this kit is that it was Bandai's first fully color-separated Sinanju. Sadly, it seems Bandai likes to reuse frames anytime plating is involved. This kit needed more time to get a full inner frame developed for it. This is a half-baked, cobbled-together kit that really is the best-looking and worst-built representation of its design. The Sinanju just can't catch a break. Real Grade 23 is a return to the Strike frame with the Build Strike Gundam. This reuses the AMSJ3 from the Strike Gundam, something I wish I didn't have to say again later in this video. The Build Strike is a neat little custom take of the original Strike Gundam. The armor here and the Striker pack have a nice degree of surface detail on them and looks really good once it's completed. Luckily, with this iteration of the design, the backpack is a little closer to the body, so the center of gravity isn't as far backwards as the original Strike. For ground poses, the legs can't be spread too widely or the kit will topple over because the hip joints are so loose on that ball joint. You also have those cannons on the rear that could be used to help prop the kit up if you wanted to cheat a little bit. The Build Strike to me just feels like a nothing burger, a kit that was put out quickly to support build divers without a lot of research and development, as the kit primarily already existed with the Strike Gundam. The loose hips and lack of anything to make up for the AMSJ3 reuse from the Strike is going to put this right next to the Strike in D tier. It's an unstable, boring kit that really needs a stand to get the most mileage out of it. The Astray Gold Frame Amatsumina is nearly the polar opposite of the Astray Red Frame. Whereas the Red Frame was minimalistic with its design and kit, the Amatsumina has gone over the top. I think the lore here is that the Astray was cobbled together with parts from other mobile suits, like we have the right arm of the Blitz Gundam on this kit. This is a large, bombastic design that can really only stand still. Any other pose, and this kit has a really hard time maintaining balance. These massive lobster claws on the back really are to blame for the imbalance of this kit. It honestly just feels like you're taking a perfectly balanced kit like the Astray Red Frame and tacking a bunch of stuff onto it. It's busy, it's over-designed, and not a build I particularly enjoyed. I'm going to put this kit into D tier, as it can really only do one thing on the ground, and that is stand still. It absolutely needs an action base to get any form of use out of this kit, and its over-the-top, tacked-on design. My favorite iteration of the Unicorn is here with the Real Grade Unicorn. The Real Grade Unicorn is a fine build and really stable with all things considered. This kit has a transformation within it where the armor expands, exposing the inner frame. This Psycho Frame gimmick is repeated in other model kits, but this is the easiest transforming Unicorn Gundam at an affordable price with a lot of stability. We all know the Unicorn Gundam, and it's a massive fan favorite. The Unicorn is another hybrid type of real grade, with the advanced MS joint being mixed with inner frame pieces, which makes it a more stable build despite using the advanced mobile suit joint. This has great detail and articulation and looks fantastic once completed. One of the only issues I had with this kit is the panel lines aren't super deep, which makes panel lining this kit a long process. There's some confusion with the manual where some builders have broken the bicep before while building the kit. Because the bicep step has hit a lot of builders and the panel lining can be a long process, this kit is going to go safely into B tier. It did a lot to make the Unicorn design feel and look solid, and while I never had issues with the biceps, I can't ignore the fact that it's a common issue that people have with building this kit. Here's a random release late in the Real Grade product line. It's the High Mobility Zaku piloted by Johnny Ridden. Like the earlier Zakus on this list, it is a pretty simple build other than the power pipes. We even have an extra bazooka included with this kit. There are some extra thrusters and armor added to the legs which look really nice in this real grade form. The HiMo Zaku looks fantastic. Sadly, what hurts this kit and brings it down so much is how the feet handle the added weight of the new armor. There's quite a bit of extra armor added to the rear of the legs, and the feet have a weak toe bend similar to the wing Gundams that we looked at earlier. What this gives us is a kit that's liable to topple over backwards, making it harder to use all this articulation on ground type poses. This kit is a fine out of the box build, but sadly the instability of the completed model is what makes me have to put this into D tier, so it can be with the rest of its action-based buddies down there. We're looking at another Unicorn Gundam for this entry, and this time it's the Banshee Norn. This is the Unicorn but in a very dark navy blue color similar to the old Titans Mark II. This time the shield has some added armor bits and the backpack does as well. Those armed armors for the shield and backpack add some extra weight to the kit, but the Unicorn is such a solid design it doesn't really mind it at all. This is a nice looking kit once built. It has the same mold for the armor, so panel lining is still a little funky. Because it's essentially the same kit as the Unicorn, the same issue with the biceps continue here, and still mess builders up to this day. I can't really place this any higher or lower than the original Unicorn, as it's such a similar kit with not enough different to warrant it going into either of those other tiers, so this will land right next to its brother in B tier. We've made it to Real Grade 28, the first Real Grade to take a large departure from the AMSJ building philosophy. This has AMSJ 12, and those parts are only for the arms, feet, and verniers. This is the kit that many point as being the turning point for Real Grade. This kit was very fun to put together. Its simplistic scaled-back design kept the build process easy and streamlined, and I'd say this is where Real Grade really started feeling like miniature master grades. The Tallgeese doesn't have as much surface detail as we've come to expect from Real Grades, but it still has a great look and some wonderful aesthetics, especially with the detail in the verniers. I love the Tallgeese a lot, but what has me keeping it out of S tier is this weird connector from the thighs to the side skirt, as I've never had this connect correctly and just seems a little pointless. The second problem is more of a me issue, but I had the Tallgeese fall from a very short height, and the waist ended up breaking. I'd recommend this kit to anyone, especially new builders, but I mention this ab crunch piece just so you're mindful that it's a weak point in the build. It's nearly perfect, but not quite in S tier yet. I present to you Real Grade 29, another ugly build from my collection, but also one of the best Real Grades ever created. The jump of quality from Real Grade 24 to 29 is something to behold. The Sazabi has extremely smart use of AMSJ 13, relegating these pre-molded parts to the waist, wrist, and shoulder pads, making this kit extremely solid and worry-free. There's also a ton of detail on this inner frame for this kit, and a lot of surface detail where portions of the inner frame poke through. What's even more impressive is this kit has a sort of open hatch gimmick to it, giving you the ability to show off this interior detail. The Sazabi is one of the best Real Grades to ever come out. It was an absolute blast to build, pose, and display. It's such a shame my build on screen is so damn ugly. Trust me, this is on my list of kits to retire and replace very soon. This kit has innovated the real grade design and moved up a peg from all of its predecessors, making this our very first SS tier of the list. The Full Armor Unicorn Gundam is the third release of a unicorn in real grade form. This time it includes a green psycho frame, 3 shields, 3 beam gatlings, 1 beam magnum, 2 hyper bazookas, 2 grenade launchers, 1 beam javelin, and an assortment of missile pods. This is a fully loaded unicorn Gundam ready to bring the fight to the enemy. This is more or less the same as real grade 25, but with a whole boatload of accessories. What I like the most about this kit is its stability. You can put this on a stand, fully loaded, and you'll be able to hold poses. That's more than you could say about any other iterations of the Full Armor Unicorn Gundam. It still has the bicep issue and strangely shallow panel lines, but the extra accessories give you a lot of bang for your buck, and I find the green psycho frame looks better than the red. I'm going to put the full armor into A tier. There's just so much here and it looks awesome and handles the accessories well. It obviously will need a stand to handle it all, but the fact it's even able to, I give it a lot of credit. The real grade crossbone only has the MS joint for the core fighter. This is what gives the crossbone its name. The large X thruster on the back comes from the core fighter. The crossbone is small, very minuscule, and that leads to a lot of really small parts. This makes the assembly a little more complex than other real grades that came out before it, and I know that's a point of contention for a lot of builds. I will say that it is innovative for being able to pull off a miniature mobile suit like this in 1/144 scale, and it does come with a boatload of accessories like the cape, all the beam effects, the chain effects, the fun combinable beam rifle, but it doesn't always make for an easy out-of-the-box experience, and that's really all that brought this down a peg. Trust me, I really like this kit, and I love the look of this design. It looks super accurate, it looks great, it has a great array of accessories, but I can't ignore the fact that some of these small parts are going to bounce out of some builders' hands and end up in the abyss of parts never to be seen ever again. It is a nice build when the model is complete and has a nice load of features, but due to its size and complexity of the build, I'm going to have to put this into A tier. It's nearly perfect and really only suffers from being a small mobile suit made in 1/144 scale with master grade levels of parts and inner framing. Often contested against the Sazabi as the best real grade to ever be released, we have its series rival, the Nu Gundam. An iconic and classic design, the Nu Gundam looks absolutely incredible in real grade form. Unlike the master grade, this kit is extremely stable and able to hold all the fin funnels on one side while maintaining the balance of the mobile suit. I absolutely love the Nu Gundam, and it is a phenomenal kit to build. Any builder, new or old, will get a lot of enjoyment out of this kit, and I can't recommend it enough. The advanced MS joint is so minimal on this kit, it's really only used for the funnels and nothing else. This kit even includes an open hatch type of gimmick that is decent, and I'm glad it's included. However, compared to the Sazabi's open hatch gimmick, this one falls short. The front skirts of the Nu don't really even show anything, and I suspect this is for the heavy weapon system. If we're really trying to determine which kit is better, the Nu Gundam or the Sazabi, we have to get real nitpicky. I could also mention that the proportions of the head aren't fully accurate. Despite the fact that I actually prefer the real grade Nu Gundam head to its line art and anime models, when I need to determine which one is better, I have to split hairs like this. I really want to put this kit into SS tier, but the Sazabi really just edges out ahead of the Nu Gundam when we consider everything included. The Nu Gundam will go into S tier, but just so shy of SS tier. The Force Impulse Gundam. One of my favorite designs from the Seed universe, this is a fantastic kit with unfortunately one fatal flaw. The Impulse has seen a lot of printing. We have the regular Force Impulse, the Force Impulse Spec 2, the Sword Impulse, and now the Blast Impulse, giving us all forms of the Impulse Gundam in real grade form. This kit has been printed to the moon and back, and there's good reason for it. This kit is absolutely fantastic. When we look at the real grade Impulse and the high grade Impulse side to side, we can definitely see that the Impulse Gundam design has benefited greatly from the added surface detail of the real grade series. It's a fun, intuitive build, relegating the advanced mobile suit joint into just the core splendor. This kit does have some great articulation and a split up gimmick that doesn't break the kit and make it unreliable. This is an A tier kit all day. What's preventing this from S tier is its mold defect of the V-fin. The V-fin is laid out horribly, leading to a very brittle piece of plastic of the V-fin, which is already fragile enough as is. I would recommend the Force Impulse to anybody. It's a fun build and a seed kit that doesn't have a ton of standing issues thanks to its inaccurate and disproportionate backpack, which I'm not really actually complaining about. I think it looks pretty awesome. But just be mindful of that V-fin. It's so common that parts resellers overseas have the V-fin listed for $15, which is extremely expensive for one piece. The Zeong brings us to Real Grade 34, with perfect use of the advanced mobile suit joint being used for the articulate hands, which like the Sazabi makes for perfect use of the AMSJ. The Zeong on paper is a relatively boring design, an unfinished mobile suit with no legs and thrusters in their place, sent into the final battle of the war as a last-ditch effort to help turn the tide. This was Zeon's magnum opus for their new type pilots. With arms that can disconnect and be controlled remotely and beam emitters within, this isn't a mobile suit you want to find yourself up against. The Zeong really shouldn't be this interesting, but Bandai went the full distance with the Real Grade, allowing all the armor flaps to open and articulate out of the way as if the legs really existed for this mobile suit. I'm surprised we still haven't seen a P Bandai Perfect Zeong come out yet. What's extra impressive with this kit is its fantastic use of surface detail for not only the armor pieces, but for also the inner framing and the mechanical detail for the thrusters. This is a highly detailed kit that looks amazing and menacing, with so much more articulation than you would really anticipate. They really did a fantastic job bringing this originally goofy design to life. They even packed an action base in so we could get full use out of this kit once it's completed. This kit absolutely belongs in S tier. For Real Grade 35, we have our third iteration of the Wing Gundam in Real Grade form. It's the Wing Gundam TV version. This is an updated and very advanced redesign of the old Wing Gundam that so many US fans know and love. This version of the Wing Gundam has never looked better, with a fantastic contrast of the blue colors with the white and a little bit of the red. This design looks fantastic here and fits right in next to its rival counterpart, the Tallgeese. I don't really have any issues with this kit at all. The proportions look fantastic, and its use of the AMSJ is only for the wings, making an extremely solid kit. Not only is this kit solid in mobile suit form, it even has a full transformation built into it. This is a favorite Real Grade of mine, and while I'm nostalgic for the design, I think the features and reliability of this kit speaks volumes. Another easy S tier added to the list of Real Grades. Here is my favorite Real Grade of all time, the Hi Nu Gundam. Nothing has topped it yet. I know I've gone on record saying that this is my favorite mobile suit of all time, but just hear me out. This doesn't come from a place of bias. This is the best the Hi Nu Gundam has ever looked. With a fantastic blend of blues, contrasting well against the white, it just really looks so good. What edges this kit above the regular Nu Gundam, you might ask? Well, as solid as the Nu Gundam is, the Hi Nu Gundam is quite a bit more capable than the Nu Gundam, and a lot of that has to do with its more symmetrical design, with the funnels being split into two thruster racks. The Hi Nu uses the AMSJ the same as the Nu Gundam, keeping them only in the fin funnels in small capacity, which is perfect utility for them. The Hi Nu also has these massive fuel boosters to give it support for more dynamic poses, so we don't really have to worry about the heavy backpack here. What's also an improvement over the Nu Gundam, and even the Sazabi in this case, is the open hatch gimmick on this kit. It is quite expansive, with more areas to open and more details on the frame. There's even some truss framing pieces that are part of the interior details itself. This is really more of a mini perfect grade, and that's the best way to put it. This is a very feature-rich kit that will keep you busy and happy while building. A very easy S tier for taking what the Sazabi walked with and running with it. If the Hi Nu Gundam is a mini perfect grade, then the God Gundam is a mini high resolution model. The God Gundam is sliding right into SS tier. I made SS tier specifically for kits that took the formula of Real Grade and said I'm going to take it a step further and innovate, and what the God Gundam does for Real Grade is bring the articulation to insane degrees. The Real Grade God Gundam is really capable of pulling off any pose you could possibly think of, and it does great while doing so. The God Gundam looks sharp, strong, and fierce in this Real Grade design, with all the colors contrasting and working together to make an absolutely beautiful kit. With plenty of detail to go around, this is a fantastic kit with some of the best articulation Bandai has ever cooked up on any kit. The advanced MS joint is used here for great effect, in the wrist for the armor gimmick, and in the armpit for some great articulation, and it doesn't make for a weak kit while doing so. An amazing little kit that packs a big punch. A wonderful iteration of the Epion, this kit does a great job of working with this more dragon-inspired fantastical design and bringing it to life through the real grade standards. The Epion looks mean in this real grade form. It seems to have a more angular look, which works really well for the design. While the kit is back heavy, it's able to handle most poses I can think of. It really is a solid design and was really fun to build from the minute I opened the box to the minute the clear coat dried. I loved my time building the Epion. The advanced mobile suit joint here is used only for the heat whip, which is great utility for the AMSJ. This is a great real grade with a great aesthetic and wonderful stability. This kit is begrudgingly gonna go into A tier. While I do love this kit a lot, I can't help but think it's a little expensive for what you're getting. I want to put it into S tier, I really do, but $50 is quite expensive for a kit when the standard MSRP you can get the Hi Nu Gundam for $5 more, and the master grade for about $10 more. For whatever reason, this kit is just expensive, and it's sadly a detriment to the kit as a whole. This entry for Real Grade 39 is not going to be pretty. Starting off number 39, I'm going to tell you where I'm placing it. This is going directly into E tier. Yes, you heard me right, the same tier that the Zeta and the Skygrasper are in. Why? Why is it going into E tier? It's not really different from Real Grade 33, so it should be on par with it, right? Isn't it the same concept as the Banshee and the Unicorn, or the AEUG and the Titans Mark II? Well, yes, it's the same concept in theory, but here's where I have heartburn with the spec too. This kit is a shade of saturation off from the original Force Impulse Gundam. This isn't an entire palette swap, this doesn't have any extra included parts or fun bits, this is just a slight recolor. We don't even have a Luna Maria Hawk pilot figure, we still get Shin Asuka, and he's marked off on the manual not to be used and to be thrown away into the runner abyss, never to be seen again. What a shame. What makes this kit even worse is a few months later we get the announcement of the Blast Impulse Gundam Spec 2. That's what really cooks my goose. Instead of getting new molded parts and a configuration of the Impulse Gundam we haven't had before, we get a double dip release with the Blast ending up on P Bandai. That's what puts this release into E tier. It's not a bad kit because it's the same kit as Real Grade 33. The only problem with it is the V-fin that's brittle, but the harsh business practice of double dipping this design for one shade of blue and red off from the previous release while knowing the Blast Impulse was in the pipeline is slimy. I'm not a P Bandai hater, but in moments like this it makes no sense. The Force Impulse Gundam Spec 2 and Blast Impulse Gundam Spec 2 should have swapped release slots, and I'll die on that hill. Real Grade 40, the Gundam 2.0. The first official 2.0 release of a Real Grade gets put into S tier. Immediately, no questions asked. Now I will preface this by saying original prints and copies of this kit do have a slight issue with the Vulcan gun not protruding in the socket enough. This has been revised and newer prints should have this fixed. The Vulcans on my Real Grade 2.0 I don't think look that bad, but I suppose to some it does. By that metric I should be placing this kit into A tier because it has a problem, but the problem has been fixed, and going forward any 2.0 Gundam should be perfect. The RG 2.0 was such a fun build, I built two of them back to back, one in standard and one in G3 colors. I love the look of the Real Grade 2.0 Gundam. It has its own design inspiration that sort of mixes all iterations of the Gundam into one perfect package. The aesthetics, color separation, and contrast, as well as ease of build, make this an easy S tier for me. This is one of the most articulate RX-78s we've ever seen, and it even has the core fighter installed with it. This isn't innovative enough to get it into SS tier, but it's S tier, and that's not bad placement for this fella. Real Grade 41. The latest kit, not even in the States yet sadly, is a bit of a stinker. This kit lands itself into E tier, right next to Zeta, Skygrasper, and Impulse Spec 2. The main cause of this is simple. It reuses AMSJ3, the same joint from the Aile Gundam, all the way back in 2011. The primary skeletal frame of this kit is from 13 years ago. People complained about it back then, and they're certainly complaining about it now. The Akatsuki does have some nice styling to it, and added surface detailing really makes the design look great, but I think plated kits are going to be very advanced for new builders, requiring gloves to assemble without covering the kit in fingerprints, and even the nub removal, there is some margin of error to accidentally remove some of the plating that's on the kit. I wanted to like the Akatsuki a lot, but the poor reuse of an old frame and its inability to hold the pose you want it to in air or even do a simple standing and shooting pose is unacceptable unacceptable and disappointing, especially at the price point of $85 or more US dollars. The only plus side to this is that the kit has an Action Base 7 packed in, which tells me Bandai knew that this thing had issues, and rather than fixing it, they chucked a stand in the box. This is a band-aid and not an actual solution to the problem. Looks here aren't everything, and it's just sad to have to end this video on a low note. Maybe in the future when more real grades come out we can re-rank these and maybe it will land better, or perhaps there is something that will save this kit, but for now it's towards the bottom of the barrel. Here is how everything laid out after looking at all 41 real grades. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different opinions out there, but I feel I did a decent job looking at everything from a fair perspective. Real grade is my favorite grade of Gunpla, and I really just wanted to make a fun video going over all of them. People have asked for a real grade Gunpla buyer's guide, and I feel this video would be a good tool for that as it covers all 41 real grades in one big video. My recommendations would be anything from tier B and higher would be a relatively trouble-free experience. Just take note of what I went over in this video so you're well prepared for your build. Any kit C or lower and you'll need some glue or joint guard at the very least, so keep those handy if you go to the depths of this tier list. Like I mentioned in the intro, this is just my takeaways after building all 41 of these kits. Your experience may be different and everyone has a different perspective, different taste, and even a different build style. In any case, I hope you at least had fun talking Gunpla with me for the past hour. Please keep in mind, I know that some of these builds are extremely ugly, so please be nice when commenting. Some of these builds are from when I first started and nobody starts off with an amazing build. Thank you all so much for tuning into this tier list video. This took me a solid 4 days to write, film, and voice. I intended to have this done for Christmas time, but I got too busy at work to make it on time, so here it is at the beginning of 2025. We made a lot of strides on the channel this year, and I couldn't do it with all my subscribers. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions keep me going, and I'm more than happy to keep bringing you Gunpla content so we can build a fun little community together. This video is a sort of thank you from me to you for all the support this year. You guys really are the best. Until the next video, stay safe, have fun, and happy building.